So I'm super excited today because it's a world first for the Peaky Agilist podcast. Not only have we got a co-host, so I don't feel lonely anymore, but I've got two amazing guests. And we're all from completely different parts of the world. So first of all, I just want to welcome Bani. Bani's going to be my awesome co-host today. Bani, where are you from again?
Well, I'm from India, but I live in Zurich. So I'm happy to be here and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome, Bani. I can't wait. So thank you all the way from Switzerland. And we have Kerri. Kerri from?
I am living in Austin, Texas, in the US.
Fantastic. Actually, I love Austin. It's a place that I visited once, and I have a funny story about it, but I won't bore you with it right now. Maybe right at the end we'll squeeze that one in. But a lovely place. And Erin, where are you calling from?
So I am in Denver, Colorado, in the United States. Great.
And I know we were just talking just before we kicked off, and you were telling me it is actually quite a distance between you guys. Is that right?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
Yeah,
about a 2-hour flight.
Yep.
So Southwest will get us there really quick, or else a long, like 12-hour drive.
Wow.
So you can decide either to take a 2-hour flight or a 2-day journey by road.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I would never even contemplate anything like that. But yeah, I know in America, a lot of people probably would. So that's an interesting trip. But no, super excited. So we're gonna get to know you guys a little bit more. I know you're both Agile coaches, so that's going to be for me. I'm just spoiled for choice right now because I think Agile coaching is so big at the moment. There is just huge value that we see, in Agile coaching. And I get really excited when I talk to other Agile coaches as well. So I know you guys have got really interesting backgrounds. So Kerri, would you like to maybe just give us a bit of an intro about yourself, a bit of background? How did you sort of get into Agile coaching? But then also tell us a little bit about your childhood. Your early years would be great as well.
Sure. So, well, I'll start with the more fun part, or maybe it's not the more fun part. We'll scratch that. I'll start with my childhood because at a very young age too, my father was transferred from the US overseas to Dubai, was the first place that I lived. And so began what I would say is a life of exploration. And so I had a chance to spend most of my childhood living overseas, Dubai, Jakarta, Indonesia. I went to high school in Aberdeen, Scotland. And so I love traveling. I love exploring the world, meeting new people, trying new food, all of it. Fast forward many years, and I'm in my professional world, and I moved from being a project manager, someone who I went from organizing plane flights and where my family was traveling to organizing projects and figuring out what needed to be done so that we could successfully complete them, into this awesome place of the world called Agile. And I was invited to be a Scrum Master and then invited into coaching, where I really felt like maybe I found my passion, maybe on the journey to a vocation. It just something that really brings a lot of joy and excitement for me and what I do every day. So it feels less like a job and more like something that I'm just having a great time with, helping people. And it's what brings me joy. So exploring as a young child, traveling into exploring the world of people and how they navigate change as an adult.
Wow, what a background. I was going to say all those countries. So are you much of a foodie? Do you sort of have a passion for food?
Absolutely. Food, wine, people, all of it, for sure. Switzerland is on my place, though, of places I need to go see, because I haven't been there before.
Well, you can count on me for some good tips for Switzerland. Happy to share that. So I assume also
opens up again. I'm coming.
Absolutely. So I assume you are also a bit of a travel junkie then.
Absolutely. Yeah. As much as I can, you bet.
Mm-hmm.
And Bani, you celebrated your birthday recently, and you were telling me all about an amazing place where you celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Switzerland has some amazing hot thermal spas right in the center of mountains, surrounded by mountains with views of beautiful lakes. And so I did also, manage to pick out one of the spas usually you have these spas who are booked out for like 2 months in advance. And you can never get a booking or reservation until the next 2 months. So I was very lucky that I managed to kind of get the reservation done. But it is full of wonderful spas, and it's just a rejuvenation, switching off from the madness of the world, and just, taking some time off to really recharge your batteries.
Sounds perfect.
Oh, yeah. I'll be happy to share more recommendations. Yeah, you can count on me for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And last but not least, Erin, would you like to give us a little bit about your background and early years for you growing up?
Yeah, so my early years are complete opposite of what Kerri's were. I was born and raised in a very small town in British Columbia. So Squamish, between Vancouver and Whistler, right on the Sound within the Pacific Ocean. And we had roots. We stayed, it was just my family, so my parents and my brother and sister. We didn't have family near us. And I didn't move. I didn't have my first move until I came to Colorado for college, actually, because that was where my mom was from. But we had a fantastic childhood, playing sports. That was one of those towns growing up. It's different now, but growing up, you went to the store and people knew you. And it was a conversation all the time. And when I go back now, it's kind of the same thing. And I'll hear Erin Ray, because Ray is my maiden name. And so it takes me a second to turn around and go, oh my goodness, I know you, but I don't, because I can't remember, because I've been gone a while now. But had a fantastic upbringing where I coached. I was a part of the community. I coached sports. I volunteered. I did soccer schools, things like that. And then when I came to Colorado, I uprooted. I was like, I got to go do something. My parents are American. And so I actually have dual citizenship. So coming to America was quite easy because of my citizenship. But yeah, moved to the western side of Colorado, where I went to university and got a computer degree. And then I came to Denver, where I started my career. And just, I haven't left. And actually that's how I met my husband. Was I had started at a job and I'd been there about 3 weeks when, as a web developer, I brought down, we managed websites. I worked for the parent company that owned newspapers across the country. And I brought down every single online version because I put a space in regex. And so if there's any technical people, spaces, regex doesn't like spaces. And so my future husband, who I hadn't met yet, came in and was like, because he was part of the IS side or whatever he was. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, I think I raised my hand a little bit. And I was like, I think it might've been me. So that's how we met. Now, we didn't start dating until he had actually left, but that's how I started on my career with Agile, actually, because that's where it was introduced. And it was this, as I was listening in class as a web developer, going, oh my goodness, it has a name. This is how I've worked my entire life. It has a name. And that it just took off for me, And, I got out of being a web developer, became a scrum master, was like the web development manager, product owner, chief product owner. And I did some research and I did some certifications. When I left that company, I just had my second daughter. And that's when I became an enterprise Agile coach and did some stuff through the Agile Coaching Institute with Lisa Adkins and Michael Spade, and really just like mind blown, going, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then that was actually how Kerri and I met, was on that journey. And wow. So yeah, that's just, and then just keep growing and growing. We bring Agile, we have it in our house, which, is super fun too. I do Girl Scouts, I have it there, like it's who I am day in and day out. regardless of what environment I'm in. So.
Great. So I'm going to take a pause there and we'll cut this bit out. But Bani, do you want to delve deeper onto that side of it? Because I think that's quite an interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Erin or Kerri, I'm not sure, don't remember correctly, but one of you mentioned that you've been doing this since 2007. It was you, Erin, right? Yeah, absolutely. So, and since you said that, it has a name to it, and it was like a aha moment for you probably, or a eureka moment, as they say. So in these 13 years, like 2007 to 2020, in these 13 years, how have you seen Agile change, or how have you seen it evolve really? What's changed?
So for me, it's interesting to go through, and I invite Kerri to join in too, but I feel like some of it has been cyclical in a sense where, I was trained by consultants, and it was by the book, right? And then consultants kind of backtracked a little bit and goes, we have the framework, whether it's Scrum or whatever you're doing, but we really need to get those behaviors and the mindset, and the rest will follow. And that's the methodology that I follow. Is the framework's the framework, but we can't work within that framework until we actually change our behaviors or modify them and utilize a true agile growth learner's mindset. And so, but I've seen this, that's why I say it's cyclical, because as we get new consultants or new, maybe Scrum Masters or new coaches that are kind of coming in, it's Scrum, or safe. And then it's like, oh, wait, we need the behaviors, because nothing's changed. We're still doing the same stuff. We just are doing it in this framework now. Right. And so that's what, for me, that's been a big piece of this. It's also, now we're seeing a shift. And again, I invite others, is what is a coach, right? Because everyone for a few years, and even now, everyone's called a coach. But there's a lot more to being a coach than just a title and maybe like that role of Scrum Master. There's so much to it. I mean, we're listeners. There's vulnerability, courage, empathy, all these things get tied in. And so starting to really see more education as to what really is a coach, versus just saying, I'm an Agile coach. So I kind of went tangential on you. But those are some of the things that I've seen over the, more than a decade. And it's just, you can see it. And then that's why it just keeps evolving and evolving, which I find is fascinating. It's fascinating. And then the different perspectives, and oh my goodness, the industries now. The other industries, it's not an IT thing. It's not, it's grown. Like I said, I do it in my house. You can do personal Agile. Oh my goodness. So
yeah, absolutely.
That was long-winded.
That's a really interesting point, because Kerri, I think you were also, dealing with these cross-generational, Agile mindsets. So, probably I feel that there's more proactive acceptance of Agile mindsets with the younger generation. And do you see that difference, or do you feel that there is, in terms of the acceptance, do you feel that, there's a generational gap, or there's a difference?
I haven't really thought about it from a generational perspective. So that's something that I think is interesting and would be interesting to explore. Something that I've seen a lot of is, so that notion of, let's just implement a framework. I want to make changes. So I was thinking about some of the things that Erin said, and kind of what's coming for me is that people want the quick fix, or the, how can I get started? What can I do that I can do quickly? Because we're a very fast, and maybe that's where some of the generational piece will come in, because as every generation comes and our technologies advance, there's the probably level of patience for certain things has gone way down because we're used to getting stuff so quickly.
I can certainly vouch for that with my kids, Kerri. My 8-year-old wants it like that. Everything has to be like that. Even if he has to wait for 2 seconds for a screen refresh, that's too long for him. So I
absolutely. Yeah. And when you think about
instant gratification is the buzzword here.
Yes. And when you think about it, implementing a framework, like implementing Scrum, is something we could do tomorrow. But changing the way that you approach work, changing the way that you think about how to collaborate with people, whether or not you bring business along with you or customers into the process, all these different things of, can I really handle changing requirements at the last minute, stuff like that. That's not okay, tomorrow I can start anew with this new behavior, this new mindset. That is what takes a while. And I think that it can get lost because it's not the instant gratification. It's not the immediate change. I'm seeing something different. That takes longer and it's harder to spot. And because of that, I think sometimes the mindset continues to get lost. When people think of Agile, they immediately think of execution. How do I get the work done? And they don't think about the behaviors and the mindset. And yet, as Erin said, is such a core part to what Agile is all about. And if you only do the doing, then you have really missed kind of the whole picture. So, yeah, but that's it. I think the generation question is an interesting one. You know, I think
absolutely. I think probably, you know, you have these varied generations, especially maybe in Google, you know, you would be dealing with so many generations. And that's why, you know, I think the key is really how do you build that proactive acceptance, you know, which is already there with the younger generation, but with the ones who are already there and you know, it's a different mindset change for them. How are they really, you know, accepting the change that's coming in, you know, and so I think that was interesting. So to know,
I did a quick experiment with my daughter once, she's 11 now, but about 3 years ago, she caught me red-handed because I kept stealing her Lego, and she said, "Daddy, why do you keep stealing my Lego?" And I was like, "Well, I do this Agile training, and I need some Lego." But I was trying to explain to her this notion of Agile, which is, you know, these small iterations. We don't need to kind of spend months and months analyzing before we build anything. And at the end of the conversation, she went, "Daddy, but that's how I would do it anyway," right? And it really hit home because it was like, well, yeah, you would, but there's plenty of people that wouldn't. And the generation that, you know, I grew up with think very differently, because when we were young, we'd get set some homework at school, and if we didn't get a good grade, we would be thinking, well, maybe I need to do more research. Maybe that's the problem. And so next time I do this, I'm going to just do more and more research. And I don't want to hand anything in unless it's had a certain amount of analysis.
Exactly. Unless I get it perfect, or as close to perfect as I can.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's a really interesting. So Bani, you should be like flying with Agile. I think your mindset should be there, because you're a lot younger than me anyway. So
yeah, well, I think we're all moving towards more agile talent, and I think we're hiring people for more strategic work than you know, or short-term temporary work than having full-time employees. So I think there's also a shift in our hiring processes and how we are really looking at recruitment now.
Yeah, well, it's something that's. Oh, go ahead, Erin.
Well, no, I was just going to hit on the recruitment thing, because that's a big play in this, right? Is because I look at skills as a learned thing, right? So we can learn skills. I mean, if there's some passion around it, but some of these behavioral things, we've got to incorporate those into our recruitment process. Right? Do they fit? Does this individual fit into the mold of our organization as to what we want to be, and where we want to go? Because we can train them on whatever skills might be needed. I mean, there might be some base stuff, and so that's a shift too. That I think some smaller organizations are going that route, and some are there. Some of the larger organizations still look, I need, these 7 skills, and you have to have so much experience with those because we got to get the work done, kind of like what you had just mentioned, right? And so that's a big shift too that I've seen and hope to see more of as we continue our journey. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very valid point, because a behavioral pulse checking of a person at recruitment time is one of the key things that we definitely do. But there are not enough products in the market that I see who would actually support you to really do the pulse check in terms of behaviors.
Yeah. And that's a great point on recruitment. So something that I was involved in at a previous organization, which is a global bank, where graduates, for example, were put through assessments, and I'm going to actually ask Kerri the assessment process at Google in a second. So that would be great to hear. But we had a very traditional way of assessing young talent as they came through the process, and something that I was on a mission to change. And in the end, we managed to redesign the assessment to become a very agile focused assessment. And part of that was to get people to reflect a lot more. So we gave them some activities in groups, but then there was an element of reflection, and not just about saying, well, we thought we did it brilliantly, we thought we did that challenge brilliantly, but we really valued people that were quite critical in their self-reflection, because that's what we want agile teams to demonstrate. So I don't think we fully went through all of the behaviors, but we started to touch upon some of the key ones, so that they were much more aligned to agile ways of working, rather than saying, how smart are you? Because there's plenty of smart people in the world. But yeah, Kerri, I'd be really interested to hear about any insights you have in terms of Google.
Yeah. So, and I do want to, in fairness, I only just started in June. So a lot of things that I'm learning, I have not gone through the.
That's about 50 sprints in Google, isn't it?
Exactly. A couple of things I'll share, and that is that the performance assessment, the way that they do it at Google, I would say could benefit from a little more agile thinking behind it. It is still a little, it's still got a very key individualistic piece to it, meaning what are the ways in which you have demonstrated and shown the impact that you're making, not just to Google, but to the world. So we're looking at our users, and that means anyone and everyone in the world, because as we know, anybody uses Google. So the performance process itself, I think, still lends itself more towards the individual than it does towards the team. And that's something that's being acknowledged. But whether that changes in the near term, I'm not sure. So I would say it's probably less as exciting to hear about it, because you would expect something different. But the one thing that is pretty amazing to be here and at this company is that the culture is such that as an individual, I have the ability to come in and look for places where I want to dive in and help support the company, or work on a project, work on something that has greater impact that I'm passionate about. And I have the ability to go for it. I don't have to be so constrained by what team do I sit on and who is my boss. So you guys may have heard about the 20%, the 20% rule. So, take 20% of your time and put it towards anything you want. And we joke about that. So in some cases, that's just like, now we're doing 120% because we're just adding on more things we want to do. But the culture at Google is such that I think you have a far stronger way to make an impact as a person. I can decide and have more say in my decision of what I work on and where I can support, the company and the ideas of the things that we want to do. Whereas I think at traditional companies, you're in this org structure. This is your title. These are the things that you can do. At Google, if you hear that another group is working on improving processes or improving tools or developing this really awesome, feature for Google search for, accessibility, whatever that looks like, you can say, hey, I want to be a part of that, and go be a part of it. And that is a really cool way of working and totally different from traditional. And so I think that's where some of the performance that's focused on individual, I think that's where that connects. And that's just my, having been there for 4 months now, that I'm learning. I think that's part of the reason why the individual comes up so much is where do you want to contribute? What do you want to be a part of? And how can you make Google a better place? And they want to create the space to make that happen. So it's completely different thinking. And yet, you do have a performance tool that is a little, it's certainly not team oriented. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, that's good to hear, because we often look to the likes of Google, Facebook, these big companies, and assume they've got it right. They've got 100% right, but it's always nice to know that they're not perfect. So that we've still got hope for ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead. And Erin, I want to come back to actually something you mentioned earlier about you've sort of been looking at how you can utilize Agile in your personal life and your family life. And that'll be really interesting to hear some of the ways in which you're able to do that, because I'm sure there's some listeners out there that perhaps don't work in, Agile teams as such, but they're really interested in trying to apply this at home. So that'd be really nice to hear from you.
Yeah. So part of it is coaching and the mindset. And then part of it is actually structure. And so I'll start with the structure piece. I have a magnetic board that sits on our fridge, and I took 2 pieces of tape and, I built a personal Kanban board with magnetic little labels and so dry erase markers. And so we'll put on the chores or things that need to get done. And then we all have the opportunity, they're listed, to pull those in and get them done. We started one, I think it was only about last week, because I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and I was tired of the kitchen. I'm like, I don't know, you guys must be starving because all the food you have is on the floor. And so we started one where I was like, okay, so every single night, this is girls, you guys are on this, and one of you will vacuum the kitchen and one of you will vacuum the mudroom, because that's what we have. That's our main place. And so we started doing that, and there's something about the satisfaction, and it's the same with teams and work, right? The satisfaction of moving that card to doing, and then moving it to done, right? There's something, and so even my kids, they really, there's something that changes within them, this accomplishment. And so that's what we have. So we have a personal Kanban board that we have, and it's right there for the whole family to see. My husband, who I love dearly, right? But unless it's written down for him, he just doesn't see it. And so he's like, I appreciate that it's up here. And then he can go, and then he knows, he'll be like, okay. So rather than me being unfortunately passive aggressive, going, I think we should mow the lawn, right? And so it's up there, right? So that's what we've done in our house. And then on a coaching mindset thing, I actually changed how I talk to my kids. About 5 years ago, I read Carol Dweck's A Mindset, the psychology professor at Stanford, and it totally shifted because I started to see between that learn the growth versus fixed. Mm-hmm. And I could see things in my kids. I could see things in myself, my family. Like as we were talking about stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, here's pieces of my family, whether my parents or sisters or, acquaintances. So it actually shifted how I talk to them. And then going through the coaching path that I went through with Coactive and some of the stuff with Agile Coaching Institute and others, there's a lot. And, I have an 8-year-old girl, and she'll go, Mommy, can we stop talking about this? And I said, kiddo, I don't know, not quite yet. Right. Because I ask a lot of questions. And like, so what was going through your head? Or when she got something done, right? Or both of them. I'm like, okay, so what excites you? What are you so excited about right now? And it's like, because I did it, and it took me some time, but I did it. And I said, exactly. So what are you going to do next time? Right. And so bringing that so that's how I've shifted. And it's really a focus on just growing some really good humans. Are we going to stumble? Of course. What do we learn from it, though, that is going to propel us? And then I do, like I said, I'm a Girl Scout troop leader for both of my girls. So it's the same thing. So I get to influence other girls, and really the goal in our house is strong women, strong girls, not so whether it's strength, behaviors, just who we are as people. That's what we continue to strive to. But so that's where I've brought it into who I am, and I live it every single day. And it's like, okay, so what? And because I ask my kids too, and I'm like, so what can mommy do differently next time to help? And so we have that open dialogue. And then the one thing that I've made it very clear through all the conversation is, okay, so if you remember one thing out of this, what is it going to be that you, and so they know, and this is their response, that you and daddy love us no matter what goes on. Exactly. Right. And so, but that's how we do it. So obviously my conversations shift a little bit to when I'm at work, but that's how we've brought it into our house. And part of it was how I was raised, with a mom my mom never raised her voice. I don't think I've heard her yell. And I'll be 43 in a couple of weeks. I don't think I've ever heard her raise her voice. And it was a lot of that. She brought that into the house. And so it's just something that's been a part of me for a long, long time. So
language is so powerful, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean, the language we use, we stop and think about the choice of words, the inflection. Are we looking for curiosity and interest, or are we just, how do we speak to each other? I feel like there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah. And I invite the girls into conversations. So if their teachers say, this is what's going on, I invite my girls into the conversation. I want them to own their own problem and the solution. It's not mine and their teachers to come up with. And so an incident happened, that wasn't an incident, but something happened last year in second grade. And so when I met with the teacher, I said, well, I talked to Mackenzie about this last night, and here are the things that she came up with that she thinks she would like to try. And she's just like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about talking to Mackenzie, right? But that's a big part of it, is in the same in work. Own your own solution. And there's something really powerful and empowering about that, versus it being handed to you.
And you shift the conversation from and this is extreme wording, so I recognize I'm using it, but the victim of, these problems, these things happening, to becoming the person that can champion the solution or be creative in, well, what if I tried this? What if I tried that? And then you move into a place where you have a little more ownership and maybe feel a little less the victimized, a little more, I have control over the changes I want to see, whether you're 8 years old or you're 40 something. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's so interesting and so powerful to raise kids with that kind of mindset, because that's going to be a huge part of how they show up in the professional world, and what's the kind of creative intention they show up with.
No, nice. I'm all of that's resonating with me, because I definitely feel you guys. I've got a son and a daughter, and the two are very, very different, but really sort of lands in terms of what you were saying there, in terms of the intent and the language. I mean, it's something as simple as sometimes saying to the kids when they come from school, how was your day? And they'll just say good or bad, and it's that closed question, isn't it? And you get no indication of what their day was really like. But then if you change the words a little bit, sorry.
No, sorry. I actually created a document and handed it out to parents in my neighborhood. Like, hey, if you're getting the same, change a question.
Right.
And with a document of like, here's a sample of like 15 questions. Use them or don't, make your own. But so I did that. And then another thing that I've done with my kids is emojis. Emojis are everywhere, right? And so each of them got their own sheet of emojis. They colored them, we cut them out, we glued them to popsicle sticks. And so if they're not ready to talk, they can just take that emoji stick, put it in a cup, and then at least my husband and I have an idea of where they are, you know, and so then they can still express their emotions without having to vocalize it, because sometimes that's hard. And so those are a couple of things too. And again, I've sent those to parents in our little community, like it feel free, you know, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, you know, come up with your own. But
so, Erin, yeah. I could really do with that document. I'm gonna ping you afterwards. I could really do with that.
Happy to share.
Yeah. And have you tried anything, Paddy, that's worked with your kids?
Oh gosh. So I mean, I tried the Kanban board actually. That was quite an interesting one. So when we went into lockdown, we were having to homeschool the kids for a while. I say we, it wasn't really me, it was my wife who was doing it. I was just there to take the glory at the end of the day and just go, hey, let's just do some art or something. And I'd get the easy stuff. But for a while, my son especially, he was finding it really difficult to kind of concentrate and actually get disciplined about his work. So I created a little Kanban board, and it totally changed. It totally changed their whole approach, because what we put on there wasn't just the work, the work that they needed to do. I asked them to think about some special treats that they would like to do during the day. So maybe play in the garden or jump on the trampoline or whatever. So we sort of mixed it up a little bit, and you're right, Erin. Every time they would move that card over, especially to the done section, they would run up the stairs really fast, and they were sort of excited about it. So that worked for a while for them, but then I think after a bit they got a bit bored with it, just because maybe I didn't follow through with it as much as I should have done. So we're going to now go into a little bit of a fun section. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick fire round. So I'm going to set a timer of about 2 minutes. And this is where you have the opportunity to share some of your tips and tricks about all things to do with life generally. So this could be how to boil an egg, or it could be how do you do enterprise-wide coaching really well? Like, you can choose which element you want to share. So I'm going to start the clock in a second, and feel free to kind of vibe between yourselves. And this is a bit of self-organization here as well. Okay. So as many tips as you can share would be awesome. Okay. Yeah, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, they're raring to go. Right. 3, 2, 1, off you go.
Okay, so do things with intention. So that's just in life. So be intentional about what you want to do, and then focus on it.
Absolutely. Listen to respond. Are you listening to respond or listening to understand? Make sure that when you're listening, it's listening to understand and not just to respond, where you're kind of closing out the door.
Yeah. Another one is meet people where they are. Right? So we come in with expectations of where we believe people, wherever it is, where they should be. We really need to meet them where they are, close that gap, and then we have foundation to go to where we may want to be.
Absolutely. And, you hear the phrase, assume noble intent all the time, but really, really believe it. We don't know what's happening in other people's lives. So just because someone does something and it sort of rubs you the wrong way, take that pause and assume for a minute that whatever's happening isn't personal to you. It's part what's going on in their life. Always assume noble intent.
Yep. Another one is hold people close, right? As we've experienced over the last almost a year, things can be very volatile. And so, hold those that you really want to be close. I mean, with your kids or whoever it is, be open, share, be courageous in that vulnerability.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely. And it can kind of connect to that. Don't be afraid to start things. So let's say you're going into a meeting and you're setting working agreements. So you want to set intention, because we know we want to have those meetings that actually have purpose and objectives. Don't be afraid to bring your heart into it and to personalize a little bit in that way, to ask people to be heart driven and curious. It's so awkward in the workplace, but it sort of sets people, it helps change the tone and the way in which they're approaching work.
Awesome. Time's up. That was just
Oh, no. That was amazing.
Oh, high fives.
I have more.
Oh.
Fun.
I think we'll have a second episode on that one then, Erin. We're going to have to get you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, Paddy, do you have anything else to add to that? But before I think Erin leaves and hops off, I think given all the amazing things that both of them shared with us, if there was one line or a one life hack, one liner, if you were to give that, what would that be?
I think I don't know that it's a life hack. I think it's just, be human, show up. And that goes to the, just show up as who you want to be and who you are, and stand in those values, understand who you are. And then, not to be rude and disrespectful to others, but understanding who you are is it's critical for when you show up, when there's times of conflict or there's things that don't resonate, right? Being able to speak up, I think that's a big one. And it's ongoing because we evolve as humans, right? We're constantly changing, as our chapters kind of close and new ones open. But it's understanding, it's introspecting, it's knowing who you are. I could go on.
That's an interesting one, and that's a pretty it's a pretty intentional and a difficult one, I would say. It's really hard to get to know yourself. You have to really set that intention and spend time on it.
Yeah.
How about you, Kerri?
Yeah, I'm bummed that I don't have something different. But where I was going to go is I recently did the leadership circle profile. And one of the categories that resonates with me so much, because it connects a lot to Brene Brown and some of her work, and that is being courageously authentic. So it ties into what Erin is talking about. When you are courageously authentic, that means you own when you don't know something. You own your vulnerabilities. You own I'm not sure what's going on in this minute. And it also means, especially for those of us women out there, that we can own our strengths and we can own our accomplishments and we can be proud of the things we've done, even though it might feel like that's not something we're used to doing. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm really good at this. That my strength is in project management or in whatever, but when it comes to the technical side, oh, Erin, it's all you. Like and that's a surface level thing. Now take it one level deeper. Be courageously authentic, own the things you're great at and be proud of those, and then own the things that you're not. So be vulnerable, be okay with saying, that's not my wheelhouse. And that's okay. Someone else, it will be for someone else. And they can pick that up.
Oh, absolutely. Love that. And I love the synergy between the both of you and the thought process. It's beautiful.
Oh, no, thank you so much for that. So one last thing before we let you guys go. So Erin, any future plans you want to share? Any particular projects or interesting things that you're up to?
I don't. Sure. So we're at home, right? We're remote learning with our 2 kids. And so that's something. And then I am the co-chair for Mile High Agile, which is a big conference here in Denver. Yes, Kerri was accepted to speak and then we canceled, of course. But so I am the co-chair for that. And we're figuring out what next year is going to look like. So that's one thing, that's coming, and I think that just resonates with so many people. Like there's a lot of unknowns, but those are kind of, we're navigating life right now. I think that's a project in itself.
Nicely put. Nicely put. Thank you so much, Erin. And Kerri, just from yourself.
So if you follow a theme, accomplish what matters. So what matters to us? You like how I just added in another thing right into there? The things that I'm working on are the Agile coaching circles with Erin Randall, and there's several others now of us hosts. So Jasper and Dino and Jason, and I won't get everybody's names. But the cool thing is that we've set up a safe space for coaches, scrum masters, leaders, people who want to come in and practice those powerful questions, those open-ended questions, having those conversations and moving people through the arc. We've created a 1-hour meetup in North America, 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 2 in Australia, kind of the Australia, Asia, Pacific area. And they've been going really well. Our next step in that is to create the space for Spanish speakers. And so that's Dino from our team is doing that, which is super exciting. The second thing that I'm doing is I've been invited to be a part of the Agile Austin board. And so I'm the chief product officer for the it's kind of a meetup, or I guess a community organization. I need to learn that, don't I? But for me, it's exciting because what COVID has given me is the chance to stop traveling every day for work. And of course, getting the new job at Google means I'm here at home, which means I can finally give back to the Austin community, the Agile Austin community here. And so I'm really excited to dive in and get to know my community here better.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. And if there's any links you'd like to share, I'll post them in the in the sort of show notes at the bottom as well, just so people can find out more. But thank you so much for joining us today. Bani, it's been a privilege to co-host with you as well. So thank you so much for all of your support on this episode.
Yeah,
thank you so much, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Paddy.
you.
It's been amazing. And thanks, Erin and Kerri. Lovely talking to you. And I love the synergies in the thought process. It's been awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, Bani.
Thank you, you guys.
Bye.